Naruto is a ninja who excels in combat, but let's be honest, he can be kind of annoying. It's fitting then, though unfortunate, that while Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm is a great fighting game, it's also one in which you have to play through a story-driven ultimate mission mode that's going to take you 10 to 15 hours in order to unlock most of the playable characters. The first thing you'll probably want to do in Ultimate Ninja Storm is pick a favourite character and dive right into combat with them. You can't play the game until you've spent 10 minutes installing a massive 4 gigs of data onto your console though. Once that's done, the free battle mode lets you choose who you want to fight as and against, where you want the fight to take place, and gets the action underway with a minimum of fuss. The controls in Ultimate Ninja Storm are simple enough that they don't take long to figure out, and they're also the same for every character. The face buttons are used for jumps, projectiles, melee attacks, and chakra charging. The shoulder buttons are used to block and to call in support characters. The D-pad has 4 different items mapped to it, and the left analog stick is used for movement. You can run around the large arenas as much as you want, and even when characters are far apart, the camera does a superb job of framing the action. Occasionally you might end up viewing the battle from a perspective that's more or less looking over the shoulder of your opponent, but even this is handled well enough that the action very rarely gets confusing, even when you end up defying gravity by fighting on the surface of a wall. Since there's only one button used for melee attacks, that's your go-to anytime you're close enough to land a punch. There are plenty of lengthy and satisfying combos that can be performed using very little else. But getting a combo started doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get to finish it. That's because blocking is relatively easy, though not to the point that you can simply hold down a shoulder button and never worry about getting hit. Once your guard is up, you can hold it in place for a good amount of time, but this doesn't really do you a lot of good. Your opponent's going to be charging up his storm gauge and becoming more powerful every time he lands a blow, and ultimately your guard's going to fail, and because you are hiding behind it for so long, you'll be dazed for a few seconds when it breaks. There's an excellent risk versus reward mechanic that comes into play when you're having to play defensively. Rather than keeping your guard up, you have the option to tap the block button repeatedly in an attempt to parry an attack the instant before it lands. If you succeed, you'll perform a substitution jutsu, evading the attack completely and appearing directly behind your opponent, ready to launch into a combo of your own. The problem is that less than half of the characters on the roster are available from the outset, and the only way to unlock the rest of them, along with extra moves, support characters, outfits, and awakening modes, is to play through the Ultimate Mission mode. Many of the missions you undertake are simply battles that you have to win while meeting certain conditions, and they make for some interesting challenges. Other missions, though, involve minigames that aren't nearly as much fun. You'll play hide and seek with the children of Hidden Leaf Village.
There you are!
You'll race through forests and vertically up the trunks of huge trees, and you'll just wonder why you can't unlock the rest of the roster any other way. Worse still, wandering around Hidden Leaf Village between missions to find new missions and to collect the items and currency necessary to unlock new battle features stops being fun after about 30 minutes when you've seen just about everything. Hidden Leaf Village looks great, but nothing interesting ever happens there. There are shops to visit, and there are characters with 1 or 2 lines of dialogue each to interact with, but until you're near the end of the story missions, there's very little to test your skills there. Even the secret scrolls that you collect and subsequently spend on unlocking support characters are clearly marked on the map and impossible to miss, so picking them up feels more like a chore than a challenge. The controls you use while in Hidden Leaf are similar to those in combat, but here you use them in much more mundane ways. The only time you'll need to use your chakra, for example, is to open locked doors, and the only targets you'll be punching or throwing shuriken at are inanimate objects that all contain money or scrolls. There are only a handful of them, but the best parts of Ultimate Mission Mode are definitely the boss battles that pit you against giant characters like Gamabunta and Gaara. Beating these missions requires a combination of the skills you've learned in regular combat, as well as some rapid button pressing reflexes for cinematic events during which command prompts appear on screen. These encounters aren't only the most spectacular looking features of the game, but they're also a lot of fun, and since they're generally bookended by cutscenes, they're some of the only times that the story is delivered via something other than a scroll of text. As a game that does a great job of looking, sounding, and feeling like the source material, Ultimate Ninja Storm's biggest problem as a fighting game is simply that it isn't just a fighting game. The combat is a lot of fun with a friend or against any of the AI's 4 difficulty settings. But it's unfortunate that to get the most from it, you have to spend a minimum of 10 to 15 hours playing and replaying missions in a mode that's artificially long. The lack of online play is also disappointing, given that it's practically a requisite for the genre at this point.